What's up, Fit Fam? Welcome back to the Patrick DiBello Podcast. We are officially in February, 1 month down in 2026. So I hope you are headed in the right direction to accomplish your goals this year. On that note, I decided to do a last minute challenge for my friends, followers, and clients. And it's actually turned out to be super exciting. I had a few people reach out and express their struggles with starting the new year a little slow. I know that we all have some high expectations going into the new year, and we set these resolutions and set new goals, and then things don't go as planned, and then we end up falling off track or falling behind, and it's really hard to get started again. So with that being said, I was doing cardio on Saturday, I think. It was like the 30th. And I had this idea of creating a step challenge. And basically what I did was I launched a challenge to get as many people as I could to commit to doing 10,000 steps a day in February. I have 26 people committed to this challenge. And they have combined taken 630,000 steps in 2 days. I've had a lot of people express the same feelings and emotions and the fact that this challenge was coming at the right time for whatever they are going through. So I'm super excited about it. And I'm actually doing it with them on top of my regular training. In the back corner here, if you're watching on Spotify or YouTube, you can see I have a blank calendar. That's what I use to keep myself accountable. I use it for my clients to keep themselves accountable. I basically have a blank calendar. I fill in the dates for each month, and any day that I complete a scheduled workout, I put a check mark in the box for that day. Any day that I miss a scheduled workout, which never happens, I would put an X in the box for that day. So I'm doing it for steps and for my regular training. You can barely see it, but I have 2 check marks in the box for each day. So I'm color coordinating between steps and training. So I have blue for training, green for steps. So there's a green check for any day that I hit 10,000 steps. There's a blue check for any day that I complete my training. This is super helpful for anybody who likes to see what they're accomplishing in their days, weeks, and months. I do this for my fat loss clients. You can do this for steps, calories, workouts, anything that you need to accomplish on a somewhat regular basis. So if you're somebody who is looking to lose some body fat and you have to eat in a calorie deficit, we want you to be about 80% consistent with that calorie deficit for an entire month. Month after month. So basically the way we track this is I have somebody use a blank calendar, and any day that they eat in their calorie range and they don't go over their given calories, they put a check mark. Any day that they go over their calories, they put an X. At the end of the week, we're looking for 80% check marks, which would be 80% consistency. This is great because it keeps you accountable, but it also drives home the fact that you don't have to be perfect to get results. If you are consistent, you are going to get better results than if you're perfect, because if you're just always being perfect, you're going to burn out eventually. So we don't need perfection, we need consistency. This accountability calendar that I've been using for years with myself and my clients is a perfect way to do that. I love seeing my results. I love seeing that I'm accomplishing something and that I'm checking a box every single day. On the note of perfection, the challenge is tough. It's 10,000 steps every single day. It is an all or nothing challenge. And while I do believe on one hand that everything doesn't have to be all or nothing, you don't have to be all or nothing to reach a goal. You can have off days. You can miss a workout. You can miss steps. I also believe that sometimes to have a kick in the ass, you need all or nothing goals. And that's what I'm doing here. And some people may think that it's impossible. Some people may think that it's super difficult. And it is. It's not easy. And that's the point of it. It's not meant to be easy. But at the end of an all or nothing challenge like this, when you finally accomplish it, you are going to feel so powerful and so accomplished that it's going to make other things in your life seem possible. And the daunting things that you come in contact with that you have to accomplish are going to seem less daunting. And you're going to say, you know what? I just did this for 28 days, even when I didn't feel like it, even when I was tired, even when I had an excuse. That's going to carry over into other aspects of your life. It's going to carry over into your fitness in March. It's going to carry over into your chores and errands outside of the gym. Doing something hard, doing something that is all or nothing is super beneficial when the time is right. So given that I had people who set out to have this strong New Year's resolution and big goals to use their watch and track their steps, but they were failing this early, means that we have to do something drastic. And an all or nothing goal is a good way to do something drastic. I figured it was perfect because there's only 28 days in February. It takes a couple of days out of a full month, which makes it even more doable. I also had this thing where I have a client that I'm really trying to get his steps up. He's a fat loss client. I want him to get his steps up, and I'm asking a little bit more out of him because he's super busy professional, owns his own business, has a big family. He's a dad, he's a husband, but I'm expecting a lot out of him over the past few weeks. So I upped his step count, and I've been holding him accountable. And in the middle of the month, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do what I'm asking him to do. So I basically started prioritizing my steps, which I don't really have to do because I'm super active. So if I only take 8,000 steps in a day, but I worked out for an hour and a half and rode the Airdyne and did intervals for 30 minutes, then I don't need to take more steps. But I'm a big fan of doing whatever I'm asking other people to do. So I was like, you know what? Let me join him. I'm going to do steps with him. And then it dawned on me where I was like, maybe I can get some more people involved. Maybe I can create a community of people who are holding each other accountable and motivating each other. So I created this 10K step challenge, and I'm giving cash prizes at the end. I'm giving monthly prizes in the form of... Actually, I'm not going to tell you, because if you're listening and you're in the challenge, I want it to be a surprise. I'm going to be giving prizes throughout the month. So a small entry fee just to keep people accountable. Usually when things are free, it's easy to not follow through with them. A small entry fee is going to give you skin in the game. It's going to give you a reason to follow through with your commitment. And people can win cash at the end. It's super exciting. Like I said, so far we've taken over 600,000 steps between 25 or 26 people. Most people, I think we're at like 80% consistency for people hitting 10,000 steps a day. Or 80% of the people in the challenge are hitting 10,000 steps a day. The other few people have been 7,000 or above. So I would like to think that if it wasn't for this challenge, those people probably wouldn't be hitting that many steps. They would have continued to be in a rut. They would have continued to make excuses. But here we are, February 3rd, and my people are crushing it. On that note, I did have a few requests for topics for the podcast, so we're going to jump into it. I also had an idea of how I wanted to structure the next 3 podcasts. And ironically, the questions that I was asked fit right into how I wanted to do the next couple of episodes. So here's the deal. Right now, a super popular form of content is S-tier ratings, which is basically people giving their opinions and rating certain things. Some people are doing exercises. Some people are doing supplements. Some people are doing foods. Whatever you want, people are S-tier rating them. The S-tier is starting at S, that is the best, the cream of the crop. Then it goes A, B, C, D, and F is the bottom of the barrel. I'm going to do an episode on performance, that's today, an episode on fat loss, and an episode on health. There are carryover between those things, but some things are different. And before I even get started, I want you to know these are just my opinions. These are things that I have experienced with myself and my clients. This isn't a super scientific breakdown of everything. I'm not pulling studies to find out what's the most important and what's the most beneficial. I'm not diving into the research. This is just something fun. This is just something that I am going to give my opinion on with very little stress. Like I said, it's based off of my experience with myself and my clients. Today I am doing performance training S-tier breakdown. So we're going to start with S. Maybe I should start with F. because that'll give you some excitement to look up to, but I think maybe you'll be interested to see what I think is trash and maybe not worth your time or money. So we'll get there. First things first. And actually, real quick, this is kind of challenging. I do think that there's always nuance. Some of these things can be interchangeable and some of these can bleed into the other. And with that said, I do think that S and A sort of bleed into each other. I'm not super diehard on all of these. I just had a few categories that I had to fit topics into, so I'm arranging them as best I can with my opinion. S tier, programming, meaning your training split, your intensity and effort, progression over time, and training specificity, which arguably might be the most important piece of this programming aspect. So let's talk about it. Programming. Programming is important because there's so many different variables to training that you can use to progress. Your programming has to be specific to you and your goals. You hear me talk about hybrid training all the time. So normally in my programming for my clients, especially my performance clients, we are doing multiple modalities that don't complement each other. So if I have somebody who wants to get good at running, I am definitely having them get stronger. Somebody could argue that, well, if somebody wants to get good at running, then they have to run more and they should be doing a running program. And while I agree the best way to get better at running is to run more, there is also something to be said about cross training. There is something to be said about building durability through strength training. There's something to be said about building bone density, improving your force absorption, which are all the things that my clients and I do through plyometrics, through heavy resistance training, and that will also make you a better runner. So technically, if you want to be a better runner, your program should be a running program. Technically, if you want to get stronger, you should be doing a strength training program. Powerlifter is going to be doing a powerlifting program. So while that is true, it's also true that you should be supplementing with another type of fitness that is going to have carryover into your sport. And you've heard me say this before, but I believe that a good program incorporates strength, speed, plyometrics, hypertrophy, and whatever the modality of choice for cardio would be. So that's why I'm so big into hybrid training, is because it really covers all of those aspects. Now, on the subject of training split, I think that there's so many different ways you can do this, and it all depends on the athlete's availability to train. So you can do an upper-lower split. You can do a push-pull leg split. You can do full body workouts. It all depends on how much time and how many days per week the athlete has to train. And the reason that falls into S tier as far as programming goes is because you have to maximize the time that somebody has, and a good program will do that. And you actually want to have somebody doing the minimum effective dose with the amount of time that they have. So a good program doesn't mean that you're just having somebody do all of the things. You want to prescribe the minimum effective dose where they can do the least amount of work and still make progress. And that comes into programming. The next part about program that's super important is intensity. Because you could have a phenomenal program on paper, but if somebody is not applying themselves to it properly, they're not going to get the most out of it. So it's important to manage the expectations of the intensity of each workout. And what I mean by that is you want to be pushing pretty hard, because this is going to be into the next section. The fatigue management is built into the program, and that's why I say that a lot of these will kind of carry over into each other. But you should be able to put forth a good amount of effort into each workout so you get the most out of that workout. I made a post about this the other day. If you're not lifting heavy enough to make a funny face, or a weird face or a goofy face or an ugly face the last couple of reps of your exercise or the last couple of reps of your set, you're not training hard enough. So your intensity has to be high. It really doesn't matter what your goal is. And I'm not saying a 10 out of 10, but for the most part, your training should be around an RPE 7 if I had to pick just one number instead of a range. And obviously, that intensity is managed throughout the programming. Again, specificity to the goal, that's super important. So those are the reasons that I have programming as the S tier, because if that's off, nothing else matters. If your programming sucks, if you are an athlete, nothing else matters. You can do all the other things right, but you're not going to perform. So that's why I did some debating, but programming is S tier. Now, A tier. This is something that has always been super important to me, but it became even more important as I started getting deep into hybrid training and I started running hard 3 days a week and lifting heavy 3 days a week. A tier is rest and fatigue management. The subcategories of that tier would be sleep quality and consistency. I would also say sleep duration. Recovery between sessions, which is fatigue management that I do for my clients. Another subcategory would be a deload week, or what I would call a taper week. And then managing life stress along training. First and foremost, sleep is probably I would put sleep as, aside from programming, it is the number one reason why I'm able to perform the way that I do. If my sleep is off, I cannot put forth the effort I need to get out of my program what I need to get out of it. I've always trained for a couple of hours a day. I've been super lucky and super blessed that I've had more than 1 hour to train. And I'm a night owl. Even right now, it's 9 o'clock at night. I'm recording this podcast. But historically, owning a gym for 10 years, I'd be at the gym all day. I finished teaching classes at like 8 or 8:30, and then people linger, and then once they leave, I finally have to clean and shut down. So by the time I get home, it's 10:30, then I'm eating dinner, then I have to wind down and maybe do some computer work. So I'm not getting to bed until 11 or 12 o'clock. I would manipulate my schedule as much as possible. I think I just said I would get to bed at 11 or 12. I would get to bed at like 1 or 2. So I would manipulate my schedule to be light in the morning. That way I can sleep in and make sure that I'm getting at least 7 hours of sleep. I'm not going to train for 2 hours and then be active training clients for 6, 7, 8 hours and only sleep for 4 hours. That was well before I started lifting weights and training hybrid and having this intense, workout program. Now that I train super hard 6 days a week, I heavily prioritize sleep, quality sleep, a good duration of sleep. I also highly prioritized a rest day. One of the hardest things for athletes and to get an athlete to do is take a full-on rest day, but they're super important. Your central nervous system needs that rest. Your body needs that rest. Your muscles need that rest. Your mind needs that rest. And I know it's really hard for people who are very active and they don't like sitting still, but you deserve to rest. And that's what I had to really learn, that I don't have to work out 7 days a week. I could just go for a walk one day. So my rest day is usually a walk. In the wintertime, it's a little bit harder. But during the summer, I like to go on a long walk on Saturday when I'm resting, or Sunday, depending on what time I do a trail run. So rest, sleeping well, even taking a nap if you have to. I know a lot of people don't have the luxury of taking a nap. So you have to make sure that you are getting enough sleep during the night and you are recovering well. On the subject of naps, something that I have picked up during my hybrid training days is an espresso nap. And a lot of people don't know about this, so I think it's a fun little hack to have in your toolbox. If you take a double shot of espresso right before you take a nap, set an alarm for 20 minutes. When you wake up, that's around the time the espresso is going to be hitting you. So you are going to be combining your nap with your double shot of espresso, and you're going to wake up flying. I love to do that in the summer when I actually am super active and I'm beating my body up and I do have time to take a nap. Most people know you don't need much longer than a 30-minute nap, so we're not talking about taking an hour nap. We're talking about setting a timer for 20 to 30 minutes, taking a double shot of espresso before that, and you'll be flying when you wake up. Recovery between sessions is also super important, and I think that also ties into what I mentioned with the programming is your training split. If you have a good coach, they're going to be managing your fatigue through your training split. For example, if you're somebody who wants to train 5 days a week, or if you're somebody who wants to do 4 strength training workouts a week, doing 4 doing 4 full body workouts in 1 week is not good programming. That is not good stress management or recovery management. That's one of my biggest beefs with group classes. They're just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks in the form of just giving you workouts that are going to destroy you. Very few times are group classes actually managing your fatigue, because the point of a group class is to get you as tired as possible so you feel like you got a kick-ass workout and you go back to them day after day, week after week. My clients know this. One of my strategies for fatigue management for hybrid athletes who are either big into cycling or running is making sure that I give them 2 full days off of their legs. That means 1 straight up upper body workout where they're just doing strength training in their upper body and there's no cardio workout afterwards. And then 2 is their full rest day. So between an upper body day and a full rest day, that gives them 2 full days off of their legs. Most people who are conditioned and have the durability in their lower body that we're building up through their strength training will be perfectly fine being on their legs for 5 days a week, whether that be a lower body strength session or running or cycling or rowing. Most people can handle that. And if they can't when they start working with me, they can within a few months, because we're building up that endurance, we're building up that durability, we're building up that conditioning. On the subject of fatigue, yes, there is fatigue management in the form of not destroying somebody and making sure that they can recover in between sessions. There's also something called pre-fatigue, which is another way that we use fatigue in training, which is intentionally creating fatigue before a specific session. This is something I had no clue about until I started training hybrid and I hired a coach, and I started learning that to train for a longer event doesn't necessarily mean that you have to match that time in training. So if I'm running a half marathon, or if I'm running a Spartan race that is a half marathon distance, and I know that I'm going to be out on the course for 3 hours, that doesn't mean that I have to train for 3 hours to be prepared for that. You can use what's called pre-fatigue or pre-run fatigue to basically mimic the fatigue that you're going to be feeling an hour and a half into your event. For example, that can come in the form of doing a heavy leg day or a heavy leg workout and then doing like a 30 to 40 minute interval session. Most of the time, myself included, people would never combine those two things. They're like, well, my legs are smoked. I can't run after this. I can't jog, let alone do an interval workout. And I'll never forget when I started working with Alex Viata, who I had on the podcast a couple episodes ago. First time he gave me like an interval run after a workout, I was like, what the hell is he doing? I actually messaged him and I was like, I think you wrote this workout for the wrong person, because my legs are smoked right now. There's no way I can do a run. Obviously, I did the run. Having high expectations for myself, do I think I did as good as I would have wanted to if my legs were fresh? No, but that's not the point. Anybody can do something well when they're fresh. How well can you perform when you're smoked? So pre-run fatigue or pre-cycling fatigue is when you tire your legs out before a run workout or a riding workout, and you can also do that the day before. So If you have a run on Thursday, you can have a heavy leg workout on Wednesday. Technically, your legs are still going to be a little bit fatigued on Thursday from your Wednesday workout. Maybe they're even a little sore, but you're still going to run. Being sore doesn't mean that you can't work out. It just means that your legs are fatigued. They are still rebuilding. But when you start that run, your legs are going to be tired, and you're going to feel the exact same way in the first 5 minutes of that run workout that you're going to feel 90 minutes to 2 hours into your 3-hour event. So that's how I use pre-run fatigue. But getting back to rest and recovery, this is going to spin into our B tier. You got to make sure you're getting your sleep. You got to make sure that you are resting on your rest days. If you want to do an active rest day in the form of a light, easy walk, or if you want to do an active rest day as far as some very easy mobility, that's fine. But you have to take those things seriously. Rest and recovery days. If you have a good coach, they are managing your fatigue throughout the week. They're also talking to you about how you feel. If you are feeling tired, if you haven't slept well, your coach needs to know that. Again, this is all for performance, right? We're talking about performing at a high level. So if you're somebody that is a fat loss client of a coach, maybe these things aren't necessarily as important. But if we're talking about training for events, having a high level of performance, these things are important. So communication between a coach and an athlete is super important. I'm always checking in with my athletes and my clients. Are you recovering? How do you feel? I actually can tell on the app that I use to program my clients' workouts, I can see how long my clients are sleeping. As long as my client wears their Garmin watch to bed, I can see how long they sleep every day. So if I have a client and I see they sleep 8 to 9 hours a night, pretty good chance I know they're recovering well. I know that they're getting enough rest to recover and repair. Now, if I have a client who I see they're only sleeping for 4 to 5 hours a night, even 6 hours, I'll probably check in with them a little bit more often and say like, hey, how are you feeling? Hey, are you recovering? Are you sore for a little bit longer than you should be? Like during a new phase of a program, yeah, maybe you're going to be a little bit sore. But if we're 3 to 4 weeks into a new phase of programming and they're still sore because they're not sleeping well, we got to figure some shit out. So I monitor my clients' sleep. That is part of my job as a coach. It's part of the fatigue management. If we have to pivot midweek because they're not sleeping well and they're not recovering well, that's what we do. Sleep, A tier, extremely important. Also managing life stress alongside of the training. People have things going on other than training. Maybe their job is putting more stress on them than usual. Maybe they have something going on with a parent. Who knows? No judgment as a coach. I need to know those things so I can help manage their fatigue. We can pump the brakes if we need to. Maybe we switch a workout that doesn't make them think as much so they can actually just get some movement in, do an easy jog instead of an interval workout because interval workouts take brain power. Maybe we switch up their strength workout to something that they really, really like so they don't feel like they're forcing something. So I have a list of workouts that my clients have said, hey, I really like this workout. This was a good one. If they have a tough day or they are having a tough week and they hit me up and they're like, dude, I'm just not into it today. My son just went off to college. I'm going to be missing, having my boy around. All right, cool. Let's put a fun workout that you've enjoyed in the past so you can just have less barrier of entry. We can manage that mental fatigue so you don't get tired thinking about what you have to do. During a stressful time in someone's life, I'm not going to make them learn new workouts. We're going to stick to what we know just so we can get the workout done. Mental rest, physical rest. Mental fatigue, physical fatigue, super important. You got to monitor that. You got to be honest with your coach. You got to be honest with yourself, how you're feeling, and how that is going to carry over into your training. One of the things I say to all of my clients is you have to be honest with me. Because if you lie about anything, I can't do my job to the best of my ability. That includes fat loss clients being honest about the calories they're eating, their tracking. That includes performance clients being honest about their recovery, being honest about their life stress. I think that comes from having a good relationship with each other, knowing that I'm not going to judge them and knowing that I've been in their shoes. I'm empathetic to what they have going on because I've been there. We all have things going on, and I'm just here to help manage all aspects of your life to take that stress off of you. Next, B tier. Again, there's carryover to this, right? They're all kind of bleeding into each other. Fueling your body. I say that these are bleeding into each other because rest and recovery, or at least the recovery portion, has a lot to do with fueling your body and eating enough calories and giving yourself enough carbohydrates. Part of your diet is 100% part of recovery. If you are under fueling, you are going to under recover. You're also going to underperform. Somebody who is an athlete that is looking to improve performance, you probably have to eat more calories than you think you do. You probably have to eat more carbs than you think you do, especially if you're super active, especially if you're one of my top performing clients. This is one of the things I learned really quickly. Not only, I was hungry, so it was easy for me to where I knew I'm like, damn, I'm working out hard 6 days a week. These 45-minute run intervals I'm finishing, and I am super hungry. I eat healthful foods, I fuel my body, and I'm still hungry. I almost couldn't eat enough. So I started to realize, like, after these workouts, I really need to make sure that I'm prioritizing carbs because I need to replenish my glycogen stores so I actually can recover. Yes, protein is important, but everybody's talking about protein. We all need protein. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's prioritizing protein. But if you're a hybrid athlete, if you're a runner, you need pre-run carbs. You need post-run carbs, because carbs are going to be what fuels you. Carbs are also going to be what's replenishing in your body. So fueling your body, super important. Total calories. If you are a high-performing athlete, you do not want to be in a calorie deficit. You do not want to be going to bed hungry with your stomach growling. If somebody comes to me and says, I want to train for a half marathon and lose 20 pounds, those are highly competing goals. And I know I just got done talking about hybrid goals, hybrid training, which is literally having two opposing goals at the same time. Those are two training goals. Now, if we're talking about going to calorie deficit because you want to lose body fat and training for a 10K or a half marathon, it's a horrible idea. Because if you're training that hard, that often, to where you want to improve as a runner for a half marathon, you have to fuel your body. So if somebody came to me and said, I want to lose 15 pounds while training for a half marathon, I would politely tell them, you have to pick one. And if you don't pick one, I'm not the coach for you. Because when you are training as much as you need to train to actually get better at running a half marathon, you have to fuel your body. If you're training that hard and you are under eating, your performance is going to suck. Your recovery is going to suck. It's perfect for me because I love food. So when I'm training for 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, I need to fuel my body. That means I get to eat more food. Fortunately for me, I like healthful foods. I don't need to rely on junk food. So I can eat more quality food. I get a lot of volume and I'm full. I'm refueling my body. I'm recovering because I'm putting in quality food at a high quantity. On the subject of carbohydrate intake for performance and carbs around training sessions, that's where, well, I have a sweet tooth. Candidly, I have chocolate every single night. So most of the time, the majority of the added sugar that I eat during the day, which I do try to limit, and this is going to be spoken about a little bit more in my health episode, but I'll just touch on it real quick. I do try to limit added sugar to between 10 and 20% of my daily total calories. I always have chocolate in some form at night, whether it be a brownie, a small cookie, a small Reese's peanut butter cup, something like that I enjoy. I really don't love peanut butter cups unless it's holiday cups, but some sort of chocolate every single night. Now, other than that, yes, there are some grams of added sugar that sneak in. But if I am looking for pre-run carbs, it's something like Nerds clusters. A lot of times I'll take a spoonful of honey, and that's pure carbs. So anything like that that's quickly digesting, that's easy to eat. Those are the carbs that you want to have around your training sessions. Even a banana is a phenomenal pre-workout food. When I'm running though, I don't like to have a lot of food in my belly. So that is when I'll opt for, the nerd clusters or a spoonful of honey. And actually at our local grocery store, which is probably all over the Northeast at this point, Wegmans, and I'm sure other grocery stores carry them. They have these honey packets, and I think it's like raw honey from New Zealand. They're just these really small packets, and you break them in half, and then you can squeeze or suck the honey out of the center that breaks. Super, super fueling food, honey. And then those in particular are very convenient. So usually what I'll do is I'll suck down one of those on my way to my run when I'm about 15 minutes away from wherever I'm going to run. I'll suck down one of those. And then theoretically 30 to 40 minutes in is when those are going to kick in and my muscles are going to be actually fueling off of that food. So that's what I do. If I'm going to have a banana, I'll probably eat it a little bit before that because it takes a little longer to digest than something like a quick digesting carb like honey or nerd clusters. So total calories are super important to make sure that you are recovering as a whole, making sure that you're not losing weight while you're training hard. At least you want to be maintaining your weight when you're training as hard as I do and as hard as some of my athletes do. Carbohydrates around training sessions are important because they are going to fuel you for your workouts. Now, protein is going to support your recovery and it's going to support your muscle growth. So you want to keep that up as well. Hydration is also super important to fueling your workouts, fueling your recovery. You don't want to get behind on hydration because then it's super hard to catch back up. The truth is, if you're doing long training sessions in the heat, if you're doing a long event in the heat, you're probably going to be dehydrated because you can't possibly intake enough fluids to keep up with what you're losing. So if you already start an event or a hard training session in the heat in like hydration debt, if you will, you're screwed. So you want to make sure that you are staying hydrated throughout the week. You want to stay hydrated throughout every single day, and you definitely want to stay hydrated before intense bouts of exercise when you're outside. Now, here's the kicker with hydration. All fluids count as hydration. Water is not the only liquid that counts as hydration. The truth is that there are a lot of drinks out there where water is the base. So you can still count it as hydration. Even coffee. Water is the base of coffee. Coffee is literally beans filtered through water. Coffee counts as hydration. Orange juice counts as hydration. On the subject of carbs, I do drink a glass of orange juice before a run if I don't have access to some of the foods that I listed. Milk counts towards hydration. Beer counts towards hydration, and I don't even drink. But just because I don't do something doesn't mean that I'm going to completely dismiss the facts. Literally every single fluid counts as hydration. Soda counts as hydration. So, especially around, New York, when it gets super humid in the summer, everybody's like, make sure to stay hydrated, drink your water. And it's like, anything you drink counts towards your hydration. Most people are drinking plenty of fluids throughout the day. Granted, they may be calorie dense liquid calories that are shitty, but it still counts as hydration, right? So on the subject of fat loss, people who have unwanted pounds to lose, or they are continuously putting on unwanted pounds, maybe they should be focusing on calorie-free liquids, but nonetheless, these liquids are hydrating. You cannot out-program under-fueling. So it's kind of a catch-22. Programming's most important. Fueling is underneath that. But if you are under-fueling, your program is going to suffer. Your performance is going to suffer. You are going to hate your life. D. This is tough because I kind of like some of these things. So for D, I have gear and gadgets. I'm talking about shoes and footwear, belts, sleeves, straps, watches, heart rate monitors, all that stuff. I personally love my Garmin watch. I love my Garmin for the same reasons I just told you that I use for my clients, I can track their sleep. While I don't pay attention to the intra-sleep data, like I don't put much weight into the deep sleep or the REM sleep or the light sleep. I pretty much just look at the total sleep that they're getting, because all that other data isn't 100% accurate, so I'm not going to waste my time with it. I basically look at how long somebody's sleeping, and I combine that data with how they're feeling based off how they tell me. That data is way more important and way more helpful than what the watch tells you. So even for myself, I look at my duration and then I check in with myself for how I feel. I love my Garmin watch for myself and my clients because I can program their workouts and my workouts directly to my watch, and it cues me through the workout without me even having to think. So for example, when I talk about interval runs, I program an interval run on the app that I use, and then I send that workout to my watch. So if it's a run workout, I'll go to my watch, I'll click run, I'll click start, and it's going to tell me exactly what to do. It's going to say 5-minute warm up, and it's going to count down the 5 minutes, and it's going to give me the exact specific paces that I have written in my workout. After 5 minutes, it's going to give me a countdown, 3, 2, 1, and it's going to tell me the first interval to do. So it's going to say 30 seconds at a 7.5-minute pace. After 30 seconds, it's going to say 90 seconds at a 9-minute pace. And it's going to tell me exactly when to do each round, when every round ends. It's going to track how many rounds I've done so far. So I love my Garmin for that. And when anybody starts with me, we do a variety of tests that gives me data specific to them that allows me to individualize all of their cardio workouts. So I'm constantly monitoring their heart rate data. I'm constantly monitoring their paces. And those are the things that I think are beneficial for a smartwatch. And it's just dawning on me, it's just because I have something listed in the D tier doesn't mean that I have to shit on it. I'm just putting it there because there's nowhere else for it to go. I will get to shitting on something in tier F, so don't worry about that. But just because this is the D tier, it doesn't mean that I'm going to nitpick and find things that I don't like about it. I'm going to talk about the things I do like about it. So that's what I like about watches. The other thing, keep in mind, if you are somebody who wears a watch, first of all, ignore the calories burned on your smartwatch because it's undeniably inaccurate. There's plenty of studies out there that say it can be anywhere from 20 to 50 or 60% inaccurate. So quit posting how many calories you've burned in a workout. Nobody cares. It's bullshit. With that said, it's going to be extremely inaccurate if you do not keep your user data updated. This may be a nice reminder for people. If your weight has changed, you have to update it in the app. So if you use a Garmin, you have to go into your Garmin Connect and you have to update your weight. Because if that information is inaccurate, then everything down the road is going to be inaccurate. So if you want it to be somewhat accurate, you got to make sure that your user data is accurate. Male, 5'9", 175 pounds. If you lose 5 pounds, you better put that in there. If you gain 2 pounds, you better update it, because that's the best chance you have of it being as accurate as possible. And a lot of people miss that mark. So they're relying on this data and they bought the watch and never even put their own information in it. It's not accurate. Shoes and footwear choices. Again, just because this is D tier doesn't mean that it's not valuable. So I got to give the positives of it. When I changed my footwear like 3 years ago, I changed as a runner. Something about me is I love minimalist footwear. I'm a big fan of Vivo Barefoot. I actually am affiliated with them, so I have discount codes that I can give you if you're somebody who also likes the product, or if you've heard of them and you want to try them, you can shoot me a message and I'll give you a discount code to try them out. I wear a lot of Vivos, but they're super, super low profile. So they have no cushion, like no cushion. I was so obsessed with them. I've been wearing them for like 10 years and I love doing my strength training and mobility in them. But when I started getting into running, I was like, oh, well, obviously I'll just wear my Vivos. But man, anytime I ran longer than like 45 minutes or 5 miles, my calves would be destroyed. And it finally dawned on me that like maybe I don't have to have this much loyalty to Vivo Barefoot. I still wear them for training, but I had to make an adjustment during my runs and I switched to a brand called Ultra. Altra. I love their trail sneakers. They're called the Lone Peaks. I've been wearing them religiously for 3 years. I swear by them. I was also wearing their road sneaker, which I have recently switched from. Funny story. I never really got sized, and for the Lone Peaks, the trail sneakers, I always had to get new ones before I actually should have. So they say anywhere from like 400 to 600 miles on a pair of sneakers, you should replace them. I was getting to like 200, and there would be a hole on the side of my sneaker in the same place every single pair. And I started to blame the sneaker, like these are obviously made with a flaw if I'm just putting a hole in the side, on the right side, by the joint of my pinky toe every single time. And then it dawned on me, and I was like, maybe it's how my foot is shaped and how my foot splays when I run. So I took my sneaker off and I started walking barefoot, and I noticed that when I step, I have a bone basically right where my pinky toe connects to my foot. It was like pushing out to the side in the same exact spot where the sneaker would be. So while Ultras are inherently a wide sneaker, they weren't wide enough for my feet. So I went to Fleet Feet and I got sized. And they said that in the Lone Peaks, I needed an extra wide, not just a wide. So I switched to the extra wide. In my road sneakers for Ultra, they didn't make an extra wide. So I switched to a completely different brand. Now I have New Balance and they're extra wide, and I feel so much better. So just because shoes and footwear is under gear and gadgets and I have it in D tier doesn't mean that I don't think it's pretty damn important. I just don't think it's as important as the first things that I listed. Because I also know people who run in torn up sneakers they've had forever and they do fine. And my best friend who has been training with me lately, he's done a few Spartan races with me, but he doesn't train. This dude will show up to a Spartan race in his work boots because he's a contractor, and he will smoke everybody. So while I'm a little bit of a prima donna that I need like the right gear and things fit me well, there's people out there who don't give a shit and they do just fine. What else we got? Maybe gear and gadgets could also be considered like hydration packs in the summer when it's super hot and humid in Syracuse, New York. If I'm going out on a trail for longer than an hour or longer than 6 miles, I'm wearing my hydration pack. I think those are super important. So yeah, D tier, but also pretty damn beneficial. What other gear is out there? Oh, shoot, sunglasses. Got to get some running sunglasses for the summer because I'll tell you what, they're super light and you don't get blinded by the sun. I used to wear my Ray-Bans to run, and I didn't realize how uncomfortable they were until I got some Maui gyms that I barely even know are on my face. There's sometimes I don't even realize that I'm wearing sunglasses because they're actually specifically made for running. They're super sleek, they're super light, you don't even know they're there. Definitely beneficial to have some running sunglasses. What else? A headband to keep the sweat out of your eyes, sunscreen to make sure you don't get roasted in the sun. That's all under gear and gadgets. D tier, but also super important, very beneficial, very helpful. All right, let's finish this up with the F tier. Let's talk that shit. Novelty methods like cold plunges and ice baths, biohacks and recovery trends, influencer protocols, all the bullshit. I'm going to start out by saying for cold plunges and ice baths, there are certain benefits to them, and here is what they are. Here's where you can count on a cold plunge or an ice bath. If you are a high-level athlete, I'm talking NFL player, LeBron James, NBA players who are doing 2-a-day workouts, and you don't have time to take a nap in the middle of those 2-a-days. That's where the ice bath has recovery benefits. It is going to blunt inflammation, and it's going to allow you to recover in between those sessions. A few people have said to me when I talk about hating on ice baths is, oh, well, professional athletes have been using them for years. Obviously, there's something to them. Yes. Do you know when professional athletes are using them? In between double sessions where they're at the practice facility. They don't have time to go home, eat, take a nap, and get back to what they have to get back to in their second session. Cold plunge is at the facility. They finish their first session. They probably get some food in them because food is super important. Fuel is super important to recover and perform. And then they do a 15-minute ice bath. And that helps them recover quickly. It blunts the inflammation and it allows them to get back to work an hour later. They don't have to drive around town, go home, eat, sleep, get back. Ice bath is super beneficial for that. Anything else, you're missing the forest for the trees. Most people who are swearing the ice bath benefits are sleeping for 6 hours a night. I would rather you sleep for 6.5 hours and skip your 30-minute ice bath. Way more beneficial. Doesn't sound as cool. Doesn't sound as flashy. It's not as cool to post about, but it's definitely going to be more beneficial. Normatec sleeves are another novelty method that I think is wildly overblown. Are there benefits to those? Yeah, just as many benefits as kicking your feet up on the couch and chilling out. I've been training hard for 10 plus years, putting a lot of miles on my legs, a lot of miles on my feet, strength training regularly. I do just fine because I manage my fatigue. These things that come first matter most. These are the big rocks are recovery and fueling. Managing your fatigue. Those are the big rocks. Those are what's important. Those little pebbles, like these novelty methods, like cold plunges or Normatec sleeves. Listen, if you're not a professional athlete training for 6 hours a day, getting paid for this, you probably don't need them. Theraguns, junk. Sleep, mobility, movement, strength training, 10 out of 10 times way better than the shiny new method that's promising a shortcut or making things easier. It's not easy. You just got to do things right. So usually they're entertainment. They're not performance. Like I said, unless you're an athlete in the level of getting paid to do what you do, you probably don't need all these things. You probably just need to manage your fatigue, fuel your body, get good sleep, and that's it. It was fun. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you got something out of it. Not sure what I'm going to do next week, fat loss or health. If you have any requests or input, let me know. If there are anything that you want me to tier up, let me know. If you want a Vivo Barefoot discount, let me know. As always, I appreciate you listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please do me a huge favor. Share it with a friend. Give me a 5-star review. If you are on Apple, I think you can leave a written review. That would be huge and very much appreciated. But other than that, please tune in next time. I'm starting to enjoy this. I'm going to try to pump out weekly episodes. So far, I'm 2 for 2. Let's keep this train rolling. I appreciate your time. Much love.